Alright guys, what is happening? And welcome to another episode of the Flip the Mindset podcast. This is episode 15, and I want to say a huge well done to my new co-host Dylan McGowan. Dylan McGowan was on the suicide episode and he was a massive hit. He spoke so well. I ended up getting quite pally with him, and he is now going to be my co-host in every second episode. Today we are privileged to have on the fantastic Fergus Crawley. Fergus Crawley is a hybrid athlete, which I'm not going to explain right now, as all will be revealed in the episode. But apart from being a professional, Fergus has raised countless money. I'm talking about thousands and thousands of pounds for charity. He has struggled with mental health himself, and you might have seen him on the BBC episode Silent Emergency with Roman Kemp. It has been a pleasure to have him in the show. I hope you enjoy. Please subscribe, like and subscribe guys, as it means the world to not only me but everyone who follows the show. The more subscriptions we get, it's free, takes 10 seconds, the more we get, the more people we can spread awareness to, and hoping that we can save lives, not to sound like Boris Johnson. So I hope all you guys out there are taking care of yourself. I mean guys, I mean men and women, are taking care of yourself, you're servicing yourself, and you're looking after your mental health. Take care guys, please like and subscribe and enjoy the episode. Hi guys, how's it going, and welcome to another episode of the Flip the Mindset podcast. Today we are joined by hybrid athlete, yes we'll get into that, Fergus Crawley. He's an absolute powerhouse, and he does things that the normal man kind of wouldn't achieve in their wildest dreams. I'm excited to have you on, Fergus, but before we get into Fergus, I want to introduce the main man, Dylan. Now, you might remember Dylan from our suicide with... Look, he was looking at the camera and he's like, I'm so loving it, man. He's prepped. Dylan from an episode of Suicide, about suicide, where we had Dylan and Rebecca on, talking about suicide and what can be done. And I liked them so much, and I felt that I had loads in common with him, that I asked him to come on and be my co-host. So every couple of episodes, Dylan will be here giving his opinions and asking questions of his own. So it makes it a wee bit more exciting, a wee bit more diverse. But with no further ado, how's it going, Fergus?
Good, yeah, good. Happy to be here, thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you on, to be honest. It's weird because you've been in the media a lot recently. You've been in on BBC and stuff, telling a bit of your story.
Yeah.
And you've been popping up in my screen for all sorts of things recently. Probably because there's the post on with you speaking about your suicide stuff.
Yeah.
And I kept gravitating towards certain things of you, and I thought, I like this guy. You know, so it's good to have you on first and foremost. How's lockdown been?
It's not been too bad, to be fair. I've been lucky enough to keep my job up until 3 weeks ago, where I decided to go self-employed. But I've been with Erin, my girlfriend, and the two dogs, and we moved out of Dalry in Edinburgh out to the suburbs in September last year. So we've had a bit more space, and it's worked out quite well.
What would you say has been the best part, or what would you say you have learned about yourself during this lockdown?
It's a very important question. I think one I'd encourage everybody to consider, actually. But the big lesson, it's just reinforced how important it is for me to stay focused on what's actually important to me, rather than getting caught up in what I feel or think should be important to me.
Yeah.
So that's getting outdoors, spending time with the dog, spending time with the girlfriend, just enjoying the situation that I'm in, because the easy thing to do would be to complain about lockdown, dwell on the negatives, which some people have suffered more than others, of course, but it's just being present and just enjoying the here and now and making the most of the time that we've kind of got, where you've got an opportunity to discover what makes you tick a little bit more, which I think is important.
What you say there about being present, I love that. Been doing a lot of writing and a lot of thinking about it recently.
Yeah.
Being present, it's something I've been struggling with for the last few weeks. Being present, I've been overshadowed, and I've been very clouded with past and future. So past kind of, I just have some PTSD issues, and then I've been worrying a lot about the future for just reasons of
It's hard. It's hard not to at the moment.
Yeah,
Everything going
and I
on.
wasn't really being in the present,
Yeah.
you know, and having my family, especially my young boy, it was I was starting to feel guilty. I was starting to get confused. Why am I not so in the present? I should be enjoying this time.
Yeah.
And so it's very easy to become kind of detached from the present, almost walking beside the present but not in it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, I think one of the main issues I want to address with people in 2021 when we get out of this lockdown is to stay in the present.
Yeah.
Even more so. When things get mad again and all the rush happens, stay in the present as much as we can. And I think we need to drill that into people. What you been up to?
Nothing much. I thought I was explaining my own life there. Literally, it was just so refreshing hearing that, because that's exactly the place I'm now at. It's like the dog, the walking, the girlfriend. And it's so refreshing to hear that, because if that's actually saved me, and it's like living in the present, it's like I try and think about, right, what can I do next, and think about the future and see it. And I'm always trying to have the best, but see, just living in the moment and going those nice walks with the dog, and that's literally my life, working in that, and that's all I want. But yeah, it's been great. It was great listening to that, because I was just sitting there going, "Oh, that's me."
I think the structure and routine, I think they're so key. They're so important. See, when you let the structure, when you let the routine fall apart a wee bit and you lose your structure, you start to see that there's gaps of falling into self-pity, some sadness here. I think structure and routine is something we really need to drive home to. Even I've got a whiteboard now, and actually writing even feed. So feed here. Because sometimes if I'm out of it, I'll forget to feed her for a couple of hours. Three things like that with my anxiety and stuff. She'll be crawling up to me and I'm like, "What are you doing, man? What are you doing so bad there?" I've not even fed her. She's been up since 8 and it's 12 o'clock and I've not fed her. Wee things like that, and it just keeps me a structure. Feed here, get the washing on, go out and get 10 minutes fresh air in the garden. I make myself do it now, exposing myself to the different elements. Even if it's raining outside, 10, maybe 2 minutes in the garden. But I think this structure, being in present with structure and routine is really something that people always ask me, and they continue, even though routine and structure is getting blasted all over the internet, I don't think people take it serious as they should. What do you think? Because you're a man of routine, you're a man of structure.
Oh, yeah.
Big man of, that's part of your profession.
Yeah.
So what do you think is needed to get the kind of wider public to understand and maybe implement better structure and routine in their lives?
I think I'll probably say this more than once as we discuss here, but the trial and error that goes into it, in that you can only know what works well for you and what actually genuinely helps you if you try it.
Yeah.
And I think from a mental health point of view, from a human point of view, it's really important to just continuously try new things. And I'm sure loads of listeners will have read Atomic Habits, but it's spoken about there where you've got stacking habits on top of one another, and after a certain amount of time, they'll become ingrained into your day-to-day life. And then once if you let those slip, then everything can quite quickly fall apart. You can feel like things can quite quickly fall apart because you've got one little thing wrong. Whereas the beauty of having all those structural elements means that you're much more in control of the day-to-day, which means that when things go wrong outside of your day-to-day, like when Boris decides to do a 5 p.m. briefing, the impact that might have on your mental health, on your general feeling in the present, isn't as powerful as it might be. Yeah. So I think the things that people need to do are try more new things, experiment with new things. If you think, you know what, some guy somewhere told me to read more before I go to bed, just give it a go. You might hate it, but that's fine. And it's just having an open mind to what might help you, because you won't know that it can help you until you've tried it, and then you can cross it off and move on to the next thing. And there's so many things within the past 18 months that I didn't think or had written off as not ever capable of helping me that are now a staple in my day-to-day life, like trying to meditate a little bit more, like making sure and being rigid to book in time to actually read or educate myself in a few things, even if it's an article here, an article there. Just, as you said, stick it on the whiteboard, be strict with it. And there's a few things that I've tried that I thought aren't for me, like checking in on an app each morning that sort of just monitors how I'm feeling when I wake up. And it's something that fell by the wayside because I know that whatever the app told me, I wouldn't change anything that day.
Mm-hmm.
I'd just do what I had planned anyway. But what that is a process of trial and error that means that I've now got a much clearer understanding of what's good for me. So I'm going to do more of that.
Love it. You're so, reading into you and enjoying your YouTube channel and stuff, you're so good and articulate at explaining mental health. I think you're one of the best at it we've got in Scotland, of actually explaining people's feelings. A lot of the things you said there, the words you used and all that, phenomenal. I don't explain it like that, but that's the way I'm thinking. That's the way I'm projecting you guys to see it. You explain it, to hear it. You explain it so well. I think you've been told that a few times. You explain it and capture emotions and different traits and stuff so well. And I just think it's great. And I think we need more of that. Maybe explaining it in certain ways that you really capture your audience. And because I think a lot of people there's a lot of mental health podcasts out there, right? And people will watch it and they can rate it for certain ways or other, but a lot of them don't actually maybe learn from it as much as they should. They maybe just take it as face value and then try and go through the points, but when you explain it, incredibly articulate at explaining things, and I think it encaptures you and then makes you almost understand what you're going through and then understand ways to combat it. Whereas just getting it on paper, I think people can just go, oh, that's great, oh, yeah, and then it's put away, That's it. I think I've done a lot of speaking at schools, universities, and it's something that I love doing. And one of the reasons I've gone self-employed so I can do more of it. And there's a clear distinction between the facts, the figures, the stats, and the humans behind them. Mm-hmm. And I think the humans behind them are what can actually change behaviors. The stats are only as useful as your interpretation of them. Yeah. And numbers are numbers. But if there's not an empathetic connection between you and those numbers, you're not going to change anything. So I think, as you've said, all I aim to do is just provoke a bit of thought, because had somebody provoked my thought years ago, I might not have got to the stage that I did where I attempted suicide. Yeah. And it's a tough world to grow up in as a kid now. And I think the more that we can provoke thought from a younger age and actually encourage people to think about how they interact with themselves and just the chaos of the world that we're living in is important.
What you said there about the trial and error, I think the problem we've got in society is the young kids coming up, they don't want to try anything to fail. So they're being brought up to go, failure is a bad thing. Yeah. But it's the way you're explaining it, I'm like, wow, try things, and if it doesn't go right, try something else. Yeah. So for example, at the moment I'm trying meditation daily. My head's so busy, it's like, I can only do 5-10 minutes, but that 1 or 2 minutes that I can maybe do is going to work. It's working. And
it might be 12 minutes next week. Yeah. It might be 14 the week after.
And it'll gradually build up, but I'm telling myself, it's not working, so I'm not doing it. And I just think with kids, it's like, if they go to like a football team or something and they get released, or rugby or whatever, they're thinking that's the end of the world stuff. Yeah. And I think you've mentioned that a few times. It's like, it's okay to try things and it's okay not to get it first time. Yeah, 100%. And you explained that beautifully.
See, I think it's important to understand that it's not easy meditating, is it? See, when you first start meditating, my producer Paul behind the camera, he's amazing at it. He's done it for years, different types of meditation, and he's telling me how to meditate, right? He's talking to me here, right? And I'm going, right, okay, brilliant, Paul, right? And he's saying, right, look at this YouTube video, go meditate like this. So I'm going, right. Meditation time. I go home, man, with my wee life fronts on, because I remember it for the movie. They're doing couples retreat or something.
That's it. Yeah.
I'm doing my meditation and my
candles on.
What the fuck are you doing? What the hell is this, man? And it was just hard to get myself into that zone. But see, that's the thing. See, if you only spend 3 minutes meditating a day, that's good enough
for a start.
That's what a lot of people say. 3 minutes, it builds up.
It builds, yeah. And my take on it is as well is I'm the same as you, and I still struggle with that, because especially at the moment I'm juggling and spinning so many plates that I'm starting to get into that bit of a loop where I feel like I've I've never got enough time, and that can easily stress you out. But what endurance training has always been really, really good for me, especially living in Scotland, is that if I fuck off to the hills for 5-6 hours on a Saturday, I'll never wear headphones. I don't wear headphones whenever I run at all, unless I'm doing an actual event and need some sort of psychological relief. So I keep them as a trick up my sleeve, but I use that time to just be alone with my own thoughts. And that's been essential for me over the past 3 years.
So I did see this, and people are copying you around Scotland.
Yes.
Around they're putting
Trendsetter.
because I seen it on your story, and then I think a woman had put on, tried my first run without earphones, and she loved it.
Yeah.
So I think I've always found jogging boring, and my headphones, my music always seems to. I find when I jog or go my walks, I use my music as blending into the music, feeling the music, and letting my emotions run and kind of detoxing.
Yeah,
Do you know what I
I
mean?
know what you mean. Yeah.
So it's probably finding a way to do it without it, and just like I probably wouldn't go my hour walks I do every night without my earphones.
Do you get any time during the day completely alone with your own head, other than when you're trying to meditate, though?
When I'm sleeping.
When you're sleeping, that's it. So it might be something to try, because it depends how you manifest your own thoughts inside your own head, really. But for me, it needs to be, if it's in a setting that I know like the back of my hand, it's not as effective, and I actually think this is a bit dull.
Okay.
But if I'm out around Loch Lomond, if I'm in a new part of Scotland, if I'm on a coastline somewhere, you can just sit back and be like, fucking, what am I worrying about?
Yeah.
What am I worrying about when there's an ocean out there, which is terrifying? Like, I was in Portobello Beach last week, and my phobias started to develop and return, imagining seals and sharks and things.
Seals.
I've seen a seal go under me, and I pictured it as a shark, and then freaked out. I knew it was a seal. I was like, that was a seal. Fuck. But it could have been. I just spiral out of control. But again, like when I'm running, when I'm in the hills especially, man, especially in Scotland, we've got 282 Munros. I've seen tweets about why is it in Scotland every time people hit 25, they put the drink away and just start charging up hills. But it's a good thing to do. There you go.
In the summer, I've done 6 or 7 Munros now, and it was the best feeling ever.
That's
reaching
it,
the top, the adrenaline.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, I've completed this.
My favourite thing about that, and me and Johnny, my coach and now business partner, we speak about this all the time, is that you cannot cheat your way to the top of a Munro. No. Even if you're a billionaire, I mean, you probably could with a helicopter, but I don't think Scottish bylaws would allow that. But you only get there by your own effort. At whatever pace that is, you have earned that moment to reflect on the situation, the surroundings around you. And we are lucky in Scotland to have that on our doorsteps. I mean, you've got the Lake District, but they're just...
We take it for granted, I think, as well. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's amazing.
My first Munro was like, wow, this is a life that I didn't even imagine was out there. And it's not until you do it. Yeah. It's absolutely beautiful. It's like the photos you get is incredible. I was doing it for the photos, the first one, I'll be honest.
But that's it. You've tried something new. Yeah. Whether it was for the right reasons or not. It's now,
my second and third one was for the Munro.
It's now led to the right thing, isn't it?
Mate, how many girls were going up there for a photo shoot?
Yeah, for Instagram.
And like their shorts and a skimpy bra. I couldn't believe it. And they're like, setting the scenes.
And their hair was perfect, their face was still perfect. It's like, you've just done a Munro.
Wilderness.
They're talking Nico Bin or
Ben Lomond.
Yeah.
Oh, mate.
Ben Lomond's beautiful.
Oh, it's on a good day. On a good day. It's a shit peak when it's a bad day, man. Because you just get to that bit where you're like, nah.
Ben Vorlich as well. I liked Ben Vorlich. That was a good one.
That's quite tough, that one.
Yeah, it's really tough.
There's 2 of them. There's the one by Loch Lomond, and then there's the one...
We're not that experienced.
No. Which one? Was it
He's completed them twice.
I've not actually.
We're not that experienced. We just know one Ben Vorlich.
I've got 219 to go. So there's a fair amount. I've done 63.
That's incredible.
But I was hoping to make a real dent in them this year, but I'm not allowed to.
My favourite one is it's got the eye in the needle at the top. I forgot the name.
Oh, the in Sky?
No. It's good. So not getting, you look through the eye and the needle at the top of it, or a few of them got that probably.
I don't know what that is.
You've probably done Demaya.
No, it's the one it gets really hard at the top, and you're basically climbing up rocks, and there's two ways to go. You go the left side's harder, or you can go the right side.
I don't know what one that is, but I'm sure we'll figure it out after.
I can't remember it to save myself, but it was great.
Yeah.
Breathing out my arse, but it's fantastic. So
yeah.
you said something there. How do you become business partners with your coach?
So 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I decided to do my first charity event for Movember. And that entailed, well, to set the scene, I was working in London. I'd finished Heineken's graduate scheme and I was working full time in the sales department for Heineken in London. Opened a laptop up for a full day's work in a coffee shop in Brixton. I remember it like it was yesterday. I had a salted caramel brownie and a flat white. It's vivid. And I just opened up my laptop. I just got smashed with this like white noise. And I just thought, fuck this. I just had no energy. I just didn't want to do it. And I just closed my laptop and immediately felt better. And it was just this weird like boundary between, all of a sudden I knew what I was doing was making me miserable and that something needed to change. So I worked backwards and thought, you've been in this situation before. You didn't do anything. You kept quiet about it. That led to a suicide attempt. What was missing last time? A sense of fulfillment. So what do you need this time? A sense of fulfillment. Find one. So I thought, okay, what am I good at? I'm good at squatting. I'd squatted 260 kilos in competition and 600 pounds, which is 272.5 kilos in the gym.
Powerlifting?
Yeah. So that was what I was doing at the time with some, not mad endurance stuff, but just basic cardio stuff as well. And then I thought, what charity could you associate yourself with? Because of rugby, I'd always kind of heard of, done a bit with Movember, and thought, makes sense. And then found out through a bit of research, they were the only charity with cult status in the world, which I thought, a bit cool. 2, the mustache. But also, most importantly, it's a talking point. So my plan was to start my campaign for that following Movember early and grow the mustache early so that around the office, etc., I could have the conversations that I otherwise wouldn't have had. So I decided to attempt to squat 500,000 kilos in 24 hours to represent the 500,000 male suicides globally every year. So I had a massive training run in, and Johnny was the coach that was sort of put to me for that, as he is an excellently proficient hybrid athlete himself, as well as intelligent and qualified in the space as anyone can be. And we've just been working very, very, very closely together since then. And that campaign came together in December of 2019. I was 127,000 kilos in, about just over 5 hours in. And I actually slightly tore my MCL in my left leg and sprained my patella tendon. So that was campaign number 1. But I remember this was almost an epiphany moment for me, where I was lying on the floor in a gym in Edinburgh, in lift in Edinburgh, crying my eyes out because I felt like I'd failed or fallen short. And then I actually just thought, I'm not crying here because I feel like I've let myself down. I'm crying because I can't keep pushing towards what I wanted to achieve here, which was a very, very different thing. And I was okay with it because I knew I'd given it everything I had. I knew that I'd raised just shy of 25.5 grand, I think, in my first year of just putting this out there and seeing what happens. Incredible. And it was so well received. It gave me real hope that I could keep doing this and keep actually pushing the message. And the interesting thing is, when I started that campaign, I had no intention of sharing my actual personal story. I just wanted to do it for men's mental health and suicide prevention in general terms. But when I put that out there, my immediate social circles were like, this is so important. I'm so glad you're doing this. Enough of those messages made me think, actually, maybe I'm not unique or weird or a freak or isolated in the way that I in the way that I felt. And then just said to Movember, look, I actually want to put this out there. And they helped me with a bit of a press release from their end and just helped me put it out there into the world. So I shared my story publicly, and the way it was received had such a huge impact on the people around me. And then that started to ripple from that point onwards, basically. But every step of the way, there's been 2 more significant Movember campaigns since then, but Johnny's become one of my best friends, mentor, person to phone on the other end of the phone whenever we're both struggling. Johnny's had his fair share of issues in the past as well, which he wouldn't mind me saying. He's been in a mental hospital for psychosis. He's been in and out of family situations over the years, which have really tested him. He's struggled with depression. He's really gone in and out of bouts. He's had just a lot of challenges thrown at him, that we are now very fine-tuned at understanding one another and being there for each other when we need to. And we both specialize in this area of hybrid athletic performance, which is balancing strength and endurance, which is actually quite difficult to do and is, up until quite recently, I think, was considered almost impossible to do in many ways. But we've become best mates throughout this process, and we've become so fine-tuned and sort of qualified within our own circle that the only logical thing to do is to start helping other people achieve and understand these things that we ourselves have achieved and understood, because we know the impact it's had on our own lives. And we want to, one, help people achieve their athletic goals from a strength and endurance perspective, but from a bigger point of view, we want to create a community of people that have found something that gives them a real meaning in life, and bring those people together so that they feel like they belong to something, which for an online coaching business sounds like a bit of a big goal, but we've got a lot of plans further down the line that we really want to develop. And setting goals, achieving them, and achieving things that might seem really, really challenging or seemingly impossible to those around you is something that you can be in complete control of in your own life. Your boss isn't going to tell you that you're doing it wrong. It's up to you to make it happen. And that sense of self-drive, that sense of achievement that you get from doing the work yourself, is where we found a lot of value, and we hope that the people we work with will find a lot of value.
Absolutely amazing, man. I think strength and endurance, but I come from bodybuilding, obviously, football and bodybuilding. It's almost frowned upon in sport. Strength and endurance, isn't it? It's like the thing you don't do. But firstly, before we talk about that, why November?
So, one, they're the biggest men's health charity in the world. They have the cult status, which in my mind, again, this is a masculine thing. In my mind, the cult status thing.
So explain the cult status for viewers that may not know.
So cult status is generally just means that it's kind of got a community following around. There's no specific definition, but it basically means you've got a community following and a brand around the charity that means it's not just attached to a charity. I don't know who decides what makes it cult status or not. Some advertising agency might be calling me a dickhead on the other end of this. Who knows? But I just thought in my head, as a bloke who was committing to this thing that scared him in 2019, I thought the cult status thing kind of made it a little bit less, here's a big charity project and here's a cool thing that he's doing. So again, I was reverting back to that old version of myself a little bit. But what I've learned along the way is, most importantly, and the whole reason the charity exists, is because I've disguised it with a beard to prevent looking like an obnoxious dick all year round. But what this does is it starts conversations, and that's the whole reason the charity came into existence. So for those that don't know, it was started in Australia by two guys that were just at a pub, and they got to Movember, and just one of them had grown a mustache for crack. And then they just started talking about it and realized that they were just talking about this thing over a beer as blokes, and then thought there might be something here. And then November, mustache equals Movember. The following year, they got a big group of mates together to do it. And here we are. And they've raised over $1 billion Australian dollars, I believe.
It's incredible.
They might pull me up on that, but it's a huge amount of money. I think it's £600,000 equivalent of. 600 million pounds, sorry, over the years. So it's a huge charity. They've got huge ambitions. Their aim is to reduce male suicide by 25% by 2035. Again, we'll need to fact check that one, but it's along those lines. But it exists to, the mental health side is a new element to the charity for the past 3 or 4 years, because they've seen how important it is and how developing this crisis is. And what they do, and the reason that I've struck a chord with them so much is because they fund community projects that bring men together. Calm have a hotline, which is excellent, but Movember have decided we don't need to do a hotline because other people already do that well. What we can do well is we can bring people together. And the closest example to home is the Changing Room. I don't know if you've heard it. So they're Hips and Hearts. So that's funded by Movember through Sam H.
Wow.
So they're brought together by the money that I've raised. I mean, I know how much of my money that I've raised over the years has actually gone directly into that, which is awesome. So it's their focus is bringing together projects led by men for men to make men's lives better led. And the motto of the charity is to stop men dying too young. But at the end of the day, when I put wax on the end of this and look like a French detective, people ask, fuck are you doing? And I can say, well, I'm doing this because I attempted suicide in 2016.
Yeah.
And they'll step back and go, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then you can talk about it.
Yeah.
To be fair, before telling things in, I struggled a wee bit to be so serious through all your the Insta suicide video you were on, because that moustache was taking my mind away from that. It was phenomenally perfect. Detective straight up, man.
Mate,
What the fuck's he getting with that and all that? And I'm thinking, so I want to see a video with that moustache going.
I'll do a little grooming feature. Yeah.
I was actually going through the comments to see if anyone else was just admiring how good the moustache was. You know what I mean?
Is it just me?
I know, I was, and then I thought, right, Flipping Mindset Podcast, I can't put that in the final as a suicide video. But you've got to laugh, that's what it's all about.
I mean, the point you make as well is like, that video was serious, yeah, but like, I'm not afraid to, I mean, one of my huge coping mechanisms with endurance stuff is humour. And applying humour to these situations as three blokes sitting around is a key part of what makes us tick. Mm-hmm. So not being able to apply humour to these things or saying that, you can't laugh about that sort of thing within the right context, of course, is the wrong thing to do, I think. And I think you being distracted by that moustache is testament to why the charity works and why I've just found a bit of a tribe with them.
What I was going to say is, firstly, incredible stuff.
Thank you.
Blows my mind, the stuff you've done, and I'm very, very passionate about men's mental health. And something that you said really touched me. It's when you put yourself out there and you realised how big it was becoming, and people were reaching out to you. After this podcast, for example, people were reaching out to me.
Yeah.
People that I never really thought. And it was incredible that they were speaking to me, and some of them were saying, please don't tell anyone. And what you said about your coach is now your best mate, and you've got that bond. What I think the problem is if you've not got that bond. So for me personally, when I started off, I felt like I had no one.
Yeah.
And I know you've built that relationship with your coach over time. But what would you say to people who are struggling, who don't want to come out yet? What would you say to them?
I'd say, look, I've been there and it just about killed me. And looking back now, obviously anyone that's ever been in that situation, yourself included, it's not rational thinking. So I'm not going to try and apply logic or be rational with it, because that's kind of insulting to the way that people feel when in that situation. But whether it's family, friends, a hotline like we spoke about, people even close, even a stranger on the street, there are people out there that will listen. And if you're being held back out of fear of being deemed X, Y, or Z, not only are we past the point where this is being considered as something taboo or something that makes you weak, we're at the point where you doing that will invert your own life, and it could actually have an enormous effect on those around you. And to be a bit more brutal with it, something that was spoken about in the Roman Kemp documentary, which I found really interesting, was that Joe's mum, Joe was the friend that Roman lost to suicide in 2020. She said that the pain doesn't disappear, it's just transferred. Yeah. And I know that's treading the line of saying that suicide's a selfish act, which is not something I'd ever do. But when she said that, it made me consider, absolutely, if that can happen once a suicide has been completed, then of course it can happen beforehand. And what I think is fantastic over the past couple of years especially is that all these big hard figures are coming out and saying, look, if you're feeling dreadful, this is fine. You've got special forces operatives, hardest people on the planet. I don't care how hard you think you are, they're harder than you are. And they're coming out saying, I'm fucked. Yeah. And it's an honourable thing to do. There's people there to support them, and they're there with their community working through it, and they're now better for it. If you're scared of coming out for the fear of being judged, I know what that feels like. Yeah. And I mean, even after I'd came around from my suicide attempt, to be brutally honest, I woke up in a puddle of my own vomit, lay there for about 6 hours, just completely, just soulless, just nothing. Yeah. I wasn't feeling anything. I was just
numb.
I was, completely numb to everything around me. And then I started to think, actually, you're fucking useless. Because I just went back to that mindset of, not only had I felt this way to the point where I wanted to cease to exist, but I couldn't even do that. And my suicide attempt had fallen short. So I wasn't even good enough to achieve what I'd set out to achieve. So it was another 6 months. It was at Christmas where I actually told my family. And telling my family was the most liberating, weight-reducing thing I've ever done until I did it publicly. And then, and only then, and that was 3 years later, did I actually feel like I could start to claim back my sense of self, who I was as a person, and start to move forwards properly again. Because the years from 2016 to 2019 for me, I'd view as 1, taking the time to be happy, 2, reclaiming lost time in a sense. So I was saying yes to everything, doing everything. But 3, just going through the motions. But that's not who I am as a person. And it took me sharing my story with the world publicly to realize that wearing your heart on your sleeve is the mark of strength, not weakness. And that being a man in modern day society is not what a man was. What the definition of is not what it was traditionally speaking. You're a better man. You're a stronger man for sharing these things because you can help those around you. You can help yourself, and you can be a better version of yourself. So
I think that's, for me, what you're saying is 100% spot on. Kenny's a prime example of that.
Yeah, exactly.
I met him for the first time and I was like, wow, this guy is incredible. He lets you in, he tells you how it is, and he tells you how he's feeling, and guys don't do that. Especially on like your social media. Everyone's more bothered about their filter on their face, or Kenny's just open, and that sucked me in. Like I was struggling, and that sucked me in, and I opened up, and from that day, it's incredible what you can do when you speak out, and you spoke about it, that feeling of relief that it's out there, and that's going to help not just you, but help all these people who are really, really struggling. So credit to you as well. It's amazing, man, honestly.
Again, here's a perfect example. You put yourself out there, that helped bring you out there.
Yes, it did.
And here we are, and there'll be more than just you coming off of you, and now there'll be more coming off of you, and there'll be more coming off of me, but we're just 3 guys that have followed somebody else's example, and look what's happening now. So you can be that person. You just need to stick your neck out that little bit further, but you're not alone in sticking your neck out. Here's 3 guys that will happily do it.
Come out the other side.
And it's the right thing to do. It might seem impossible, but it's the right thing to do.
It's digging deep within yourself to get it out.
It's hard, but it can be done. It can be done.
Yeah, I think the main goal of what I do, and I think what we all do, is we want to normalise speaking out. And not even speaking out, just normalise speaking about men's mental health. And mental health, women's mental health, men's mental health, but specifically men's mental health because of the stigma attached to it. We want to normalise it. We almost want to make it as normal as talking about the football. Not as often as the football, you know what I mean? Because then we would just always be talking about mental health, but we want it there as we want it to normalise it and make it as comfortable as talking about the weekend. You know, on a Monday, would you do the weekend? How's things going? You feeling all right? And I try and do this with people and check in on them on Instagram, just strangers. Some of them are like talking to me for, you know what I mean? But some of them are like, oh, thank you for asking that. I've been feeling terrible. And it starts up with relationships. It's not creepy. I know we've got such a hoodoo society now. If you say hello to a stranger, it's like, what are you talking to me for, you creep? You know what I mean? But this thing where if we can do that when we're speaking to people at work on a Monday or in the gym or anywhere, or even in the street, you know what I mean? You pass someone with their dog, how you doing? Oh, I've not seen your ages, you have a good weekend. Say, well, how you doing? How are things with you, mate? You all right? And if you think, say, you sure you're all right? Oh, yeah, son, yeah. And it just things like that can open up these wee avenues to make people feel more comfortable. Any avenue I feel we need to exploit, because this is a crisis. This is
mega.
3 people. Every podcast I say this, it's because I deal with about 200 mails a day with people. As you know, I flip the mindset. People can phone me and talk about their mental health if they're suicidal, and I try and guide them to get help. So that's what I kind of do. And that's another 3, including a boy who's 19 who's took their own life. You know what I mean? It's everywhere, it's constant, and it's not getting better. It's not. So we really need to start fighting back even more so. We need to get more funding. I feel like things have to be a celebrity to do it. So the boy, Dr. Alex.
Yeah. Alex George.
I want him on the podcast. A lovely boy. But he wouldn't have been where he is today with mental health if he wasn't living. And I also believe, and I'll tell him this, if he wasn't a doctor, that funding wouldn't have been there for him. There's loads of people who have tried to get into mental health after Love Island and stuff. They've been knocked back, but because Boris and that, and they see, all right, he's a doctor, okay, so he's a respectable man in society, do you know what I mean, blah, blah, blah. Oh, he's smart, he does this work, he does that. All right, have him in to fit the bill. And that's what I feel is wrong. That's what I want to talk to George about. Because many people...
Box ticking, isn't it?
Box ticking, because many people don't get that chance. No. Even me, I've not had chances to get onto bigger... to get through to more people and stuff like that from the incredible stuff we do at Flight Mindset and many other people I know. And it's that way. I just feel like it's box ticking. Roman Kemp coming out. If it wasn't Roman Kemp, it wouldn't have done the damage it did. And then it allowed you to come on.
Yeah.
But do we need it to be celebrities all the time coming out and then movements happen? Because that's tell me a movement that's happened without a celebrity recently. Maybe local paper coverage.
Yeah, I'm trying.
You know what I mean? It's heartbreaking when you think about it.
Run for Heroes.
Yes.
That's actually done. That was done by Olivia Strong, who was a few years above me at one of the schools I went to in Edinburgh. So that was just try this and see what happens. So it just came together
perfectly.
But that was amazing because what that showed was people can come together for a common cause. They just need a method of doing so. Mm-hmm. But 99 times out of 100, that method is provided by a public figure, a celebrity.
Yeah, you're right.
Which I don't have an inherent problem with, as long as it comes from the right place.
Well, I've no problem with it at all.
No, but it's just some of them, there's so much stuff that seems to get public conversation going that, in my opinion, I've seen in the past, mental health or otherwise, doesn't come from a good place. It comes from an agenda. It comes from something behind the scenes. And it's the bigger issue with what you kind of said there with the box ticking is in corporates, is in workplaces, in that, but we provide X amount of wellbeing investment budget for you to sign on to an app that allows you to meditate through this person from a company that we've signed up to on a 12-month contract. Yeah. We provide this, so therefore you're fine. Yeah. But you make me work 75 hours a week in a 40-hour contract. You underpay me. I'm miserable. I don't enjoy my job. You can't come back from that. That's like getting 3 hours sleep a night and thinking that having a vitamin D supplement is going to bring you back. It's not the same thing. Yeah. But there's not much we as individuals can do to control that. But something that I've learned myself, and I know a lot of my friends have learned, and I'm sure you guys have, is that you've got to try and really reconsider and analyze what's actually important to you. If you're just working for a paycheck, what can you do outside of work that will make you more fulfilled and more happy? Because if work isn't fulfilling you, work is what makes up the majority of your existence on this planet, which you only get to do once. Yeah. So you can't just be spending your time outside of the thing that's making you unfulfilled. Otherwise, you'll lead an unfulfilled life. Mm-hmm. And if the workplace is not a good place to work in and they're falling into these traps of box ticking, then try and reconsider where you sit in that hierarchy and what things you can take under your control to improve your own existence. And then it maybe 6 months, 12 months down the line, you might have thought, you know what, maybe this job isn't right for me. I'd like to move into this. It might be difficult to manage financially, but even just starting that internal dialogue and thinking about it will help you. Because I've known that I'll never be truly happy until I'm self-employed. I've been self-employed 3 weeks, and I've been building the mental health stuff, doing all my training, building 3 significant Movember campaigns that have raised almost £100,000 on the side of two different full-time jobs over the past 2 years. And I haven't loved the full-time jobs because, yes, I didn't hate them, but I kind of viewed them as not in the way, but they were there to see me through. And now this is what I'm here to do and progress now. Yep. But I found a way to make the full-time job more manageable, even though I knew it wasn't necessarily the right thing for me long-term, by getting the stepping stones in place as we go to the point where I am now.
Absolutely. And
I think in society, it's always looking for that. It's the need to always look for an overnight success in people, whereas I mean, we were talking about some rugby players before who weren't even getting picked for local sides that are now playing international level. And if you look at them, you'll see them as starting for Scotland. But how many years have they been trying to do that?
Yeah.
I know George Turner, who I've known the family for years and years and years, is now starting for Scotland at hooker. But he's been signed with Edinburgh since he left school, and he's just coming through now, and he's almost 30. So it's focused on the things that are important to you, where you can focus on them, ruthlessly analyze how they make you feel, do more of them, or change things up and try new things, as we've said. And then your perspective on life 12 months, 24 months down the line might be different, because 12 months can pass in a heartbeat. March to March. Lockdown's almost been a March. Imagine if you'd said 1 year ago, I'm gonna walk 10,000 steps a day. I'm gonna eat properly every day for the next 12 months, where you could be now. I think it's just extending that mindset.
My mate, two great points I've got to put into that is that I was speaking to someone in the corporate world, right? And we were talking about the pressures and about him not being happy in his job, right? And he says, is it the job or is it the people in the job? So, in the stressors and the pressure.
Yeah.
So he loves his job, but the stress and the pressures and the constant bombarding with, we all know this from managers and higher ups, is what is driving him to feel suicidal. And this is, let's be honest, there's thousands, hundreds of thousands in that same position.
Yeah.
The bosses, it's the system from the CEO down to the workers. They have got to have better structures to deal with mental health better, to maybe a lot of corporate ones. Think of it for this. My good friend works in the motor trade, and it's been ruthless. We've known it for years to be ruthless, and he's quite high up now. But we were talking about people going up through the motor trade and how many suicides there's been in the motor trade. With people unhappy in their jobs. And then we were talking, it's all about the pressures, it's all about the managers and the pressure they're getting put on them and their pressure they're putting on the workers. So it's not necessarily that everyone's in a job that they don't like, it's that they're in a job they became to dislike, to be overshadowed. Their liking of the job's been overshadowed by the pressures, the constant stress, and maybe the unfair managing. Right, so I think that's important first. Secondly, I coached a boy through lockdown to put 80% of furlough, his wages from furlough, and I coached him to put 40% away the whole lockdown. Yeah. And now he's got over 10 grand, right, to go on to, sorry mate, to go and take time out of his job now to find a new job. Because that's what we're scared of. We're scared of, oh no, I can't afford to. Yeah. I can't afford to stop work and take a new job. Well, why don't you do this? Why don't you do 8 months, right? You put even 10%, 20% a year, you put £300 a month away, saving, right? You work your arse off, and then in 4 months' time, when you feel better, you've built up a wee bit of money.
Like that, yeah.
Start looking for new jobs, right? Start preparing your mindset. Do you know what I mean? Start working on yourself. Keep saving your money, and then in 8 months' time, if you've not got a new job lined up or not got one yet, at least you've got the backfall to maybe quit your job and then go for it. It only takes a year, but we see this as, it's too long. Yeah. I want it yesterday. We see this as, can I do that? It's not realistic. I want to go out with my friends. That is your priorities. If you take that away, your £40 Dominoes for you and the missus every Friday, right? It's nearly £200 a month. Your unnecessary cocaine habit, you know what I mean? Your alcohol and all that, you take all this away, you've got a good few £100 a month to tuck away. Do you know what I mean? And put in. So it's about that self-awareness and that self-prioritising and we don't, especially in Scotland, we just don't see it. We don't, there's many people who will not see it. They'll stay in that job, maybe a suicide, maybe just live in a depressed state for a long time, unhappy in their life. And let's be honest, how many people in Scotland are unhappy in their job and maybe unhappy in life? It's thousands. We need to change this.
See, on that as well, though, I think it's important, and I'm sure you'll agree with me on this, is it's down to the person as individual as well. So, and I know you're big on that, is you need to, if you are struggling in your work, you also need to speak to your employer.
Yeah.
And I think you need to play a part in it as well. And I'll give an example. I'm quite happy and openly that I was struggling with my work. I've been there 9 years, 10 years. And it was like, I'm rubbish and this and that, and I've got too much work. But then what can I do? So, for example, I've worked from home since March. Right, I'm on my laptop, glued to my laptop. Go a walk at lunch.
Yeah.
Get out, get fresh air for 10 minutes. Do something. If you need to phone your boss and say, listen, I'm really struggling here. I need 10 minutes away from my laptop, or if you work from home, or speak to your boss. Obviously, it's different depending on what industry you're in, but certainly from working from home, going a walk on your lunch what a difference it makes. You come back in the afternoon more refreshed.
Yeah.
And it's just changing things within yourself as well. I know obviously employers and everything like that can do more, but you as a person need to want to change as well.
Yeah.
Mate, let's make it clear for the camera, the onus is on you.
Yes.
Always on you.
Yeah.
It's always on making yourself better. You can't victimise and stuff like that. The onus is always on you. With Flip the Mindset in the ebook that we're writing on, with Flip the Mindset, it's always dealing with yourself.
Take
responsibility. What can you do better? Responsibility, being accountable. But sometimes when I speak out with that. We know that the onus is on you first of all. Then what factors can we change? But great, phenomenal point there, because I think that most of us who are making active changes, we already know the onus is on us, but a lot of things can be against you. That a lot of people speak to their managers and now, you know, your 7 out of 10 managers are just going to go, suck it up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Unless they have like mental health first aiders or people who are maybe put pressure on the managers to understand mental health, then most managers will just say, suck it up. Like, you know, you're not getting a week off for your mental health. It's not happening. Get a sick line, because we're not at that point yet where everyone understands.
Yeah.
So it's just for that side of it. So passionate about this. Great. We can talk all day about this madness, couldn't we? And I'm trying to see, and what we try and see in Flip the Mindset, let's see it from all sides. Let's see it from ourselves. Let's see it from the boss's point of view. Let's see it from them. They're getting put under pressure. You know, we're getting put under pressure. And I just think I've been in jobs where there was just no time for mental health. And then I've been in jobs, like my last job at Pure Gym, my managers, especially Chris Green, if he's watching this, phenomenal. Always first came your mental health, how are you? Then came the job. Yeah. And I thought it was incredible, and it made all of us want to work for them more.
Yeah. Well, environment is, one of my friends, Doug, who's been a huge part of he's been one of my best friends for almost 15 years now, but he's helped with all my charity challenges for the past 3 years. No questions asked. He's there. He was project manager for the big project we did up at Ben Nevis last November. And he said to me the other day, if you don't believe that environment changes behaviour, then tell me how you'd act in the library, and then tell me how you'd act in a nightclub. Mm-hmm. And it's simple as that. Like the environment dictates your interaction with it. And I'm glad the points were made there about the onus being on yourself and the responsibility, because I didn't want to make it seem as if we can all just jump ship financially, etc. It's start the train of thought and start thinking about how you can make a change is a better first step than just thinking it is what it is. And then that first thought might manifest into, actually, I'm passionate about a career in personal training. And then 6 months down the line, you've actually looked and you've booked onto a training course, something like that.
I think it's important to see, anytime we talk about stuff like this on the Flip the Mindset podcast, the onus is always on you.
Yeah.
We are always responsible for our own choices, our own actions, and then we talk out.
Yeah.
Can I just ask as well, obviously we're speaking about employers and things like that, so now you're self-employed.
Yeah.
So where you've come from to where you are today, you're sitting here 3 weeks.
Yeah.
You're yourself.
Yeah.
Like, how did you manage to get from where you are to where you are now working for yourself?
Yeah.
How free in your head, how was it, and what did you need to do to get to that place?
So for context, I did Heineken's grad scheme. I left that job about a month after I started the first campaign, because I just couldn't, that white noise again. So I had to sign myself off because it wasn't working for me. I then started working for my dad's brewery in Liverpool. They're from the Wirral, which is just north of Cheshire, which is why I sound the way that I do. Thought we'd bring that up, even though I grew up in Edinburgh. But
we'll talk about this.
Yeah,
sure.
we'll talk about this. Yeah. But working for my dad I was an account manager, so I was managing my own time to some extent. Obviously, I had loads of commitments, but I viewed each day as I had X amount to get done, and then it'd be a success. So I'd whiteboard. Big fan of a whiteboard. Was plan out the night before. What did I need to do the following day to get me closer to my next charity campaign, my next discussion with a brand that might be able to front up some cash to let these things happen? How can I start that conversation to maybe further things down 6 months down the line? And there were conversations I had at lunchtime whilst working, which would be just connecting with someone, because I thought, I don't know what it is, but at some point in the future, I feel like we'll be able to do something here. But the key is, I didn't set myself the task 2 years ago thinking this is what I want to create in 2.5 years. I have done the things that I enjoy out with the day job ruthlessly, and I've gone all in outside of the day job from now until then. And by accident, I've fallen into what is now what's going to make me happy and what I really enjoy. And I've got big ambitions to grow it, to have more of a focused year-round impact in different ways.
I honestly find that incredible.
Thank you. No, for me. I pinch myself again, because it's like, for so long it seemed like a pipe dream, but it's now coming to life. And the past 3 weeks have been probably the busiest I've ever been in my life, but it's been like a nervous energy whereby I realized the onus is on me. It's up to me what happens next.
Yep.
I'm in control of this, and I've actually got the opportunity to sort of take everything into my own hands. But I've only got there by having that first thought 2.5 years ago, where I thought, is this the right thing for me to be doing? And it's taken me 2.5 years of stepping stone, accidental growth, amazing people around me. Everything's almost happened by accident. Well, the outputs have happened by accident, but I've planned and strategically looked at what I want to achieve, and that has been a big fucking impact every November for the past 3 years. Yeah. And then as a result of that, I've met these people, I've developed these skills here, I've done that, I've opened up that avenue, and here I am with what I hope is going to be the bulk of the rest of my life. Fingers crossed.
Think of it that way, or you could think of it as well as that you are where you are now for all the positive choices you have made in your life.
Yeah.
You know? And some probably negative as well, but for all the good things and positive choices the path that you went, and everything's fallen into place, fell into place for you. It's incredible. Because I don't think we give ourselves enough credit like that when we talk about our stories. Many people just say, it just fell into accident, instead of, you've put a lot to get where you are now. You know?
Yeah, I wouldn't have kept putting that in if I didn't care about it. And I think that's the key thing, is that if you want to...
need that purpose, don't we?
Yeah. You've got to enjoy the journey as much as the end goal that you've got in mind. Otherwise, you're not going to get to the end goal in whatever that is, business, life, anything. That's what caught me out ultimately when I was younger with my own mental health, because I left school. It's stupid little things looking back now. Like, just to give it some context, I left school with most likely to be Mr. Scotland, most likely to be a millionaire, all these little things just because I was hard working at school. And in my head, they meant nothing to me. This was in the yearbook, by the way, not just making that up for myself. Key detail there. But like, those things, I didn't look at those things and think, that's me. I just thought, it's weird, because I just worked hard because I enjoyed. Yeah. And then when I got to university and things weren't going to plan, suddenly I was like, well, all my self-worth is in my ability to work hard towards these things. So if I can't do that, who am I? But everybody expects this of you. Yeah. So you can't admit that you're struggling and not doing that, because then you'll be a failure. And if you're a failure, then you'll let down your friends, you'll let down yourself, you'll let down your family, and you'll have actually just made a bit of a tit yourself. Yeah. And the whole reason that I fell into that trap was because I was planning years and years and years ahead into the future rather than being present and actually enjoying the here and now and rolling with the punches of what happens. But the second I deviated from this 10-year plan that I'd set myself like that, game over. But fucking 10 years left to go. The way I think about it now, it's mad, because
you're setting yourself up to fail.
Yeah, and what the skills that I've developed through the endurance stuff and the stuff over the past few years is that when you hit those deviations, I'm now so much better at navigating and rerouting what's going on onto the next. And I don't know exactly what it was that put me in that mindset, but it was just I think it was just I worked so hard at school to get the grades that I thought I needed to go to the university that I thought I wanted to go, all for the wrong reasons, because it would get me this job, it would get me that car, that house, that prestige, that job title, etc. When really now, as I think the most genuine version of who I am as a person, I don't give a fuck about those things.
Yeah. It's weird because I'm the exact same with football. I plan 10 years ahead. I think it's that competitive mindset, plan 10 years ahead. You set yourself a failure, you put an astronomical amount of pressure on yourself, and any wee negative can almost make you feel like you've lost your identity.
And that everything was worth nothing.
Yeah. And when you lose your identity, you feel like you've lost your identity, you can go into dark, murky waters. Yeah. And you think, I'm nothing now. Whatever I stood for is not there.
I think the problem as well, social media is a big part of, you see the big fancy houses, the cars, you see on Twitter that this person's been married at 24, and then the friends going, well, I'm still single, living with my mum, and it's all that comparing your life to others. And I think, like, same with footballers and stuff like that, young kids growing up wanting to be a footballer. Unfortunately, I wasn't the greatest. But the problem you don't see on social media is the feelings behind that person. It's inside, behind that phone. Yeah. That is what you don't see. You don't know what they're actually going through. It maybe look like they're happy and they're living the best life, but inside they might be broken.
Yeah,
because
100%.
And people think that this is a great life. This is the life I want, and deep down that person might not even be happy.
Is that
it
phrase?
Doesn't bring you happiness.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Mm-hmm. I love it,
which I think is
absolutely
so apt, especially on social media,
especially now. Yeah,
especially now, because it's so out there. But I know you do the same.
It's not reality.
Try and just show the breadth of what goes. It's a highlights reel. That's all it is. If you watch the Scotland France highlights of the weekend, everything looks unreal because it was all mad flair left, right, and centre.
Sometimes I feel almost fake when I'm being real on my Instagram.
Yeah.
Which is
because you've been conditioned to think there's an agenda.
Yeah.
Which is so weird.
And sometimes I'm spilling the beans and really talking about how I'm feeling, and I think, you fake bastard. Like, why are you being so fake? People are just going to think you're lying. And I'm thinking, this is the truth. Like, and when I used to be one of them Instagram people who was all show and no telling, it was all kind of facade and stuff like that, and I was wearing a mask, I felt that was real.
Yeah, but the problem is with that is that you felt that was real because so many other people were doing the exact same. So you're opening up your feelings, but not very many people are doing that. So you're questioning, oh wait, no one's going to believe me because no one else is doing it. And that's the problem. There's not enough people like you.
As you say now, I've done it. Like, you're opening up now, you already do it. I'm seeing loads of people do, like, mail me and say, I'm going to start doing this. And they're all in their wee journey. Sarah Wellness, big shout out to you. She's actually now getting all her friends and all that to share their stories, and she posts it on her wellness page. So she'll go, here's Nikki. Nikki's been through this, maybe had diabetes and stuff. Just because I went on and talked to Nike invited me on to talk to a lot of their workers. And on the talk, and she took so much from my story. She goes, I want to speak out. I want to help people. And I think, boom, we're winning. But we're only,
we're there. We need to be there.
We're not even know how to fight them yet.
We just need more people to come out and just express themselves.
And we also need more. We need more. How hard is it, we talk about mental health, to get someone to share it? Unless they feel there's an agenda behind it.
I don't even ask anymore. There's no. It's one, it's time consuming, but two, my logic is, you can only do so much before it starts affecting your own mental health.
Yeah,
and
stressful,
you need to be to serve. You need to be fit for service.
Yeah.
And I'm not fit for service if I'm worrying about getting back to. It'll be something, I'm sure. I mean, you've got the facility, but if you get people in your DMs all the time asking about how you can influence their mental health with little to no context, in the back of your mind, you've got the concern, but equally, if you devote all day, every day to that, then within a couple of months, I'm going to be emotionally exhausted. I won't be able to. I won't be able to keep moving forward. So it's trying to put structures around that so that you can be as supportive.
And that's what I was making myself because I was trying to get so many people to share it all the time, and they just don't share it.
No.
And then 2 minutes later, they share Kim Kardashian's changed her hair. What? Are you that naive of the problem we've got now? And then loads of people will mail me, amazing and all that stuff. Like, why don't you share it? Share the stuff. We can't fight this war without you guys getting behind us. and then a celebrity does it. Share.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind. Okay, let's swing things back a wee bit, because people will be like, people who don't know you are like, yeah, is this Fergus, man? He sounds quite cool, man. He talks well and all that, you know? So, what was life like for you growing up? Talk to us about where you grew up, and how things started for you, and how you came to become the good man you are today.
Yeah, so I grew up in Edinburgh around Haymarket area, and my dad's been in the brewing trade. My dad was actually a cricketer that moved up from the Wirral, which is near Cheshire, just north of Cheshire, west of Liverpool. Not many people in Scotland have heard of it. But he's from there, moved up to join the brewing trade and play cricket for Scotland when he was low 20s. I think you should probably know that. But and then he just settled into the brewing trade up here. So I was born, grew up in Edinburgh, sound like this, I assume, because of where my parents are from, but I don't actually sound like I'm from the Wirral either. It's almost like the Wirral's here.
You grew up in Edinburgh?
Yeah.
Born in Edinburgh? Grew up in Edinburgh with your mum and dad?
Yeah.
And you took your mum and dad's accent from the house?
But they don't sound like this. They sound semi-Scouse. It's genuinely like, the Wirral's here, Scotland's here. My genetics have just decided we'll meet in the middle and go like Northumberland or something. I honestly, I have this conversation once a day.
Don't you? Were you hanging about with the Englishmen all the time?
No, I was at Roseburn Primary School. Like, there's no logic behind it. Like, that's
incredible.
Yeah.
You just spoke for. I like the sound of that, man. I like the sound of that voice.
It might be. I'm trying to think. It might have been audiobooks. I don't know when I started listening to them, because I remember I was mad into Harry Potter when I was younger, as probably every kid was. But
that could explain
that could be it, mate.
That is the voice of Harry went to Hogwarts.
That might be it. That might be it. But no,
I'm not saying you sound like that, by the way. That was horrendous.
I wouldn't take offence if you did. To be fair, I've had everything under the sun over the years. But it's funny because when I went to Durham University and everybody was from like London, home county, Surrey, and stuff. I sounded like I got the piss taken at me for sounding posh just because I sounded English in Scotland, and then was being called like some northern bastard from all the people down south. I was like,
that's a weird one. You're caught right in the middle.
Where do I fit here? But anyway, it's never bothered me at all. It's never bothered me. But I grew up in Edinburgh. I was lucky enough to have parents together, great upbringing. Got a younger brother who's at Loughborough University. He's a cricketer as well. He's borderline signing pro contracts at the moment. But yeah, didn't have a challenged upbringing in any sense, which I'm very, very lucky for. I had a few bad years when I was sort of 12 to 14, where I just fell in with the wrong crowd, made some bad decisions, and ended up having to move schools when I was around 14, 15. That was a great move because it just refocused me. It was big into rugby for years and years. And then I had 3 concussions in 4 weeks when I was 17, which put a quick full stop under any further rugby. I was just minced for like 3 weeks. And then I think an interesting thing to consider, and I'm wondering whether some more science will come out of this in years to come, is how much of an impact those concussions might have had on my susceptibility to depression, because there's early signs that there's a relationship.
It could be a link,
But yeah, rugby was a big part of my life. I tried every sport under the sun growing up. I mean, I kick myself now for not making more of Scotland before my parents moved back down to the northwest. But now I'm in amongst it, so it's fine. But I mean, I was playing golf, I was playing rugby, I was playing football younger years as well. I was doing a bit of everything. Always enjoyed it. And then went to Durham University and then moved straight to London. So I graduated on the Friday in July for my graduation and started a full-time job for Heineken on the following Monday. So the shortest summer holiday ever, but that was in 2017. And yeah, Edinburgh feels like home, Scotland feels like home, so I'm back and I'm here to stay, I think.
Love it.
Yeah.
When did you move back?
So moved back stayed with my parents in 2019 whilst I was working for my dad, moved back to Dalry in January 2020. And then we bought a place in Midlothian in September.
Is your girlfriend from down south?
No, girlfriend's from Edinburgh. Yeah.
So you moved up far?
Yeah. I'm just sure I'm saying that. That felt loaded. That felt loaded, but no, yeah, it is. But yeah, the second I moved up, actually, in 2020, I got an offer for a job down in London, and they were kind enough to pay for my commute. So before lockdown started, I was Monday morning 5 a.m. train down to London, getting into the office at 9:30, and then Thursday 6 p.m. train from London back up to Edinburgh.
Must have been good money in that, by the way.
Well, it was a good opportunity, and it paid well at the time. And I had a friend
that's a lot.
Oh yeah, it was. But I viewed it again. Coming back to what we said, I viewed that time on the train as a real focused opportunity to graft on the things outside of the day job.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it worked well, and then lockdown happened. So I mean, it saved me a lot of stress. But I mean, even though in my head I thought this is all fine, I can do this, I'm getting a lot of work done. Like real focused 4.5 hours of work on my laptop on the train. The second it stopped, I felt so much better, so much more sleep, so much less stress. Yeah. I was like, I'm glad that's come to an end. That was a lesson I didn't know I needed to learn, but I'm glad I did.
Life is so much about managing ourselves, you know, and
100%. Servicing
ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, doing the right things to make us. Something that I admire Paul for. He manages himself incredibly, and I've fell into a loop the last year of not.
Yeah.
So I'm all over the place with my self-management, and I know if I'm flipping the mindset and stuff like that, and people look up to me to be managed, but sometimes we just lose it, you know. And producer Paul is incredible at his self-management, incredibly not tough with himself, but incredibly devoted to complete structure and flow to his day. You know, there's no room for error, but there's no. He just keeps himself on such a great schedule that works so well with his mental health.
Yeah.
So I would guess with Paul, if that schedule came out, you would maybe start to struggle. So that's why when I'm putting structure in my life, I can't tell you the difference in my daily feels. You know what I mean? When I get up, make the bed straight away, as we always should, shower straight away, 2 glasses of water, as I say all the time, expose myself to the elements. I need to be doing this walk by that time so I can come home, and it gives me an hour before I get ready for my client. Whereas before I would roll out my bed, go for a shower, stuff myself with Weetabix, and then I've got a client. I've got an hour to watch your channel, the Stoltmans or Larry Wheels, or I've got an hour to read or listen to music. I've got an hour to spend with my wee man. You know, it changes everything when you're just accountable and manage yourself right.
Responsibility, innit? Taking ownership and having the awareness.
And it is hard to do in this day of life, isn't it?
But because the thing that is good as well is having the awareness, if it does slip, that you've got the awareness to go, that's not going right today. Why is it not going right? Because I didn't structure my day. And it's just stopping it while it goes on for weeks, because you can slip into that for a few days, and before you know it, it's a week and you're like, wait a minute, what's going wrong? Well, it's because I've not had that structure. So it's having the awareness. But you're here, you're present.
And I am present. I give so much to
everyone
external
else.
And everyone else. I do forget myself sometimes, and I need to not. So, you're up, mate. See when you started your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And you get into YouTube. Do you think that one of the reasons for starting the YouTube channel is to keep you more accountable? Does it help with accountability? Does it help with, or was it just literally you wanted to express yourself and show your journey?
Yes and no. It didn't help with accountability for training, because I'm like, in my mind, I'm so far past the point of like whatever I need to do that day training wise, I will find a way to get it done. And YouTube or otherwise, YouTube's actually a bit in the way most of the time. But for the YouTube stuff, what I found most value in, and the whole reason I started in the first place, was again to develop a skill alongside full-time work that might better serve me in the future. And now, what would have been a shit 15-minute video that took me 5.5 hours to edit 2 years ago is now a much more streamlined process. That means I can up the frequency, I can up the production value, I can learn more from it, and I can actually get more focused, more deliberated content out there consistently, especially now that it's kind of a part of what I do, I guess. So accountability to myself to keep developing and not getting stuck, staying stagnant, very, very useful. But from a training point of view, to be honest, it's more in the way than it is, because I'm like, Jamie, I'm going for a 90-mile bike ride. Do you mind getting up at 5 with me so you can come in the car and film this bit with the drone and then go home? And he's like, fuck off. And I'm like, 20 quid. And he's like, oh, fine. And I can actually, if anyone's interested in that, I can tell you what that specific drone shot is from like last summer. But it's tough. But I enjoy learning new things, and it's something that I've enjoyed. What I did struggle with, there's quite a big gap actually from sort of when winter started last year until recently. I just couldn't put the time into. I couldn't put the time to produce content around the training as well as the training, and the training comes first. So I had to drop it whilst everything was really manic. But it's now a habit. I'm now much more in control. I've got structures in place, so it all works quite well. But I feel more qualified overall, having committed the time to learning a new skill, maybe upskilling in a pretty digital world these days. And it means that recorded my first podcast the other day, jumped on Adobe Audition, and everything just made a lot more sense because I know how to use Photoshop and I know how to use Lightroom, and that might have taken me 5 hours had I not got to that point. So it's just not being afraid of being a beginner, I think, is a big thing.
What do you think it is about YouTube, vlogs, lives, tutorials, that is so popular for athletes at an elite level? Do you think it's expressing itself, or do you think it's morely a way to, they're thinking it's a way to make money?
Depends on the person, but I think from a viewer point of view, it humanizes the performance or the aesthetic or whatever it is the person is going for, which I think makes whatever that person's achieved potentially seem less out of reach.
Yeah.
Which can be the inspiring side of things. I think tutorials, etc., can just be, it's just the clarity of information. Mm-hmm. I mean, whenever I don't know how to do something, Google, find some tutorial top thing, and you've got a human being that's actually explaining it in a way that you can understand. I think, great, I like this person. Yeah. But I think there's a person behind. I mean, a still on Instagram, even if it's such a small snippet. That's why long form content is so important, and why people come with you on the journey rather than just dipping in and out. And while you'll have listeners on episode 15 that we're on now that have been with you since episode 1, because there's people behind what's being put out. And I think what's interesting is that there's some people that just don't engage with long form content at all, and then the ones that do really find themselves in little pockets of the people they like to interact with. I think from an athletic point of view as well, I mean, some of the professional sportsmen that have got YouTubes out there, it's an insight into the life of what for most people is something that we can't comprehend. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just a really good way to further break down the sort of social hierarchy that often makes people afraid of, or maybe even puts people on a pedestal to the point where I'm only going to share what celebrities talk about with mental health rather than what my pal shares about mental health.
Yeah, great points. I think that you've got YouTube pages like athletes like Matt Does Fitness.
Yeah.
Like Matt. And I feel that he is there, he's turning into more of an entertainer than he's obviously all about making his cash.
He's good at it.
And he's good at making cash.
He's incredibly strong as well.
It's these people who just they go on now and he almost becomes an entertainer, and then the reason behind what he's doing is lost. I
think it can happen, but I mean, you'll know as well, the sad reality of social media is that you do have to play an element of the game to be able to keep growing. And it's something that I don't like, but I feel like I've hit my happy medium of having complete free reign over what I put out there and actually doing a few things here or there that might help get more new people. Because all I really want to do is engage new people. And the only way you're going to do that is by reaching new people. And sadly, that involves a bit of the game playing.
See, that's what people are trying to really tell me to do. It's one thing that they say I'm missing with the podcast. I'm so authentic and I'm so brutally honest, and kind of what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
My cousin, businessman, owns his own clothing line. They keep saying you need to play a bit of the game. You're not going to get anywhere without playing it. And my stiff upper lips kind of going, no, I'll get there on being authentic and all that and do my thing, but you've got to maybe just realise what it is and use it for.
The example you gave earlier is as far as I go with the game, really, where your episode was just called Suicide. And that's just a punch that gets you. And if it's something you want to engage with, you're in. Whereas you could have easily said, here's a story about somebody I've known for 15, 20 years talking about, and that's not going to grab them. So that's as far, it's just clarity, punchiness, not clickbaity in any sense, because obviously we don't want to attach that to that conversation, but why beat around the bush? It's a conversation around suicide. Get it out there. And that means that people that are trying to explore that concept more online will maybe quicker be drawn to it than they otherwise would, which is, that's all I do. I'll aim to maybe make titles a little bit more eye-catching for new people. But my hope is always...
must on YouTube. YouTube's very tough to get going, you know.
See, can I just add something on the YouTube part? So have you had any bad comments? And how did you deal with it if you did?
To be fair, there's only like, my YouTube channel's not huge at all, but it's my views to subscriber ratio is quite massively in favour of the views. So obviously people just think I'm a dick, but it's
so is mine.
But to be fair, the one where I have had, it wasn't actually, it was when I did the £500 squat and the sub 5 minute mile on the same day and a marathon afterwards as well. But I think that's got 600-700 comments on it. And there's threads on track and field pages, like big threads.
Yeah.
But I didn't cop most of the abuse because my friend Doug, who we've already spoken about, who was pacing me, did such a bad job pacing me that he got most of the abuse. So you go on this track and field page and people would be like, oh, this is impressive. And then kind of you'd see they just wanted to be angry and bitter.
Yeah.
That pacer did a fucking terrible job. He completely failed. I'm like, oh, all right. Next one, Doug's a dick. I'm like, all right, okay. I've dodged a bullet here. But I do get a few, but you can quite easily tell when somebody's just out to troll.
People just love hating.
People but the perspective shift that made it different for me is don't take it personally, because at the end of the day, it's just a projection of somebody else's unhappiness.
Yeah.
And if it's a constant thing people are doing to me, I've actually started replying, being like, look, why do you feel the need to comment on things like this? And you never get a response, generally speaking. But at the end of the day, you shouldn't let somebody else's unhappiness have any effect on your own. And it's easier said than done, obviously, because we look at we've got a negativity bias, don't we, where we can have 999 positive comments and one person's like, this was shit. You're like, oh God, this was shit.
I used to own on that, like, I'm shit, this is shit. I know, what can I do with it? I'm not even realising all that. But like the 99% of good
professional rugby players, for example, I don't know any that get 100% kicking. Their job and their full-time job is to slot kicks. I mean, they're not going to sit. I mean, I'm sure they will think negatively about the ones that they miss, but they don't lose sleep necessarily over. They're just, what can I fix? Move forward.
One of the player, Hastings, I think it was.
Yeah.
Who got put in for Finn Russell.
Yeah.
At the last year, was it? He struggled a lot with Twitter comments about him.
Yeah.
He had a hard time.
Well, he's son of Gavin.
Yeah.
And I know that Gavin and Scott quite well, actually.
Yeah, and he struggled a wee bit.
Yeah.
Abuse. So it happens to everyone, sure. I'm sure, but it's
cut off access as well as kid.
Yeah. Man. Like,
if you don't see it, it's not there.
Yeah. Literally, just get out.
That's it. Yeah.
But and Jane Godley does it well. And Jane Godley, she must be turning into one of the most hated figures around, but she's got a huge fan base as well. But loads of thousands and thousands of people just absolutely despise her, hate her, and the hate she gets, I've never seen it like it. Like and you're not just talking 10, 20 comments, you're talking about thousands of people just don't take to her and then project that hate on her, project their own hatred on her, and she just blocks everyone. Just block. And it means she doesn't see any anymore. And that fucking, it's good. Or you do what you do is you hire someone to block everything for you. You just hit you $1 million all the time. And your
that's what a lot of athletes, like, if we come back to rugby play example, I know a fair few that have just, here's my social media, take it, because it's an advertising tool for them. Their job's a rugby player. Their job's not to have a social media account, but they do have a social media account, which is something that they can add value with. So give it to someone else, ignore the hate comments, get on with what you need to do, maybe get the odd brand deal here or there, job done. So what I tend to do is I tend to just only reply to positive comments and just ignore the negative.
Normally it's wee Stevie who hates his job, snorts 5 grams of coke every weekend and shouts bigotry on TV. Normally it's them giving you abuse. So like,
well, it's the safety. It's the safety of a keyboard, isn't it?
I think Twitter is probably I'm guilty of.
I don't go on Twitter for that reason.
So Twitter's really got really bad.
It's a hive, isn't it?
Opinionated. Everyone's agreeing, disagreeing, and then obviously what you've got to remember, there's a person at the other end who you're saying that about. So I'll be honest. There's a player in the football team I support who I've put tweets out about, and you're thinking, how's that, and what effect is that going to have on them if they see it? But I'm not thinking that at the time. It's because I support them, I pay them money.
But why do you feel you need to? I've seen these on your thing. It's terrible. It's these Celtic fans, isn't it? It's both Rangers and Celtic fans. I used to say to my mate, why do you feel the need, right? You've got that in your head. You've got that opinion in your head.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk to your conscience about it and then put that opinion away? Why do you feel the need to go onto the keyboard, to go on to get your wee thumbs working, sign onto your Twitter, and then put that post out to every single one to show them the abuse you're giving a player? Why do you feel the need to put that there? It's almost like an acceptance thing, isn't it? That you feel it has to go out to all them, so you feel more accepted. It's become
the norm. And more
people
see it. So, for example, I've tweeted that, so someone else is going to say, well, I think he's rubbish as well.
And it makes you feel good. See, someone goes and agrees with you.
And then you get all the likes, so people are liking the tweet, so you want to do it again, and that's not what social media should be about. And I'm big and I'm watch what I tweet now, because at the end of the day, there's a person at the other end of that who you're tweeting about. And I think people don't realise that. I think because they support the team, they pay the money to go and watch it, they can have that opinion. But there's having an opinion, and then there's going that little bit deeper that can really have that really bad effect on someone.
Profound effect on people's mindsets. On the Flip the Mindset podcast, we always ask our guests to go into an area of their life that was really dark. The hardest part of their life. Obviously, we're a mental health podcast. Suicide, anxiety, depression, BPD, PTSD, domestic abuse, everything. We covered everything, and we're going to cover everything. So I just want you to talk to me about how you got to the worst place of your life, because you do talk about this, and it's seriously, it's basically the purpose of what you for behind what you do now. Just want you to talk about a wee bit. We know about how you got there, but just about what it was like being there, that place where you're clouded and you can only see the darkness and you can't see by the darkness, and how you got yourself out of that situation.
So I joined university October 2014. Within probably about a week or two, I realised that the people around me were lovely people, but they weren't going to be friends for life. I was in at Durham, the sort of colleges which function like halls, but because it's quite a big university in a small city, your college is kind of a university within a university. So you only really interact with your college rather than the entire university, which is a weird concept. So I wasn't really getting on with anyone. I was getting on with people, but I hadn't made any friends in my college. I was competing in an individual sport, which was powerlifting. There was no powerlifting, weightlifting initiative at all at Durham whatsoever. I tried to start one, but they basically said, no space, sorry. So I didn't have the team sport element, having not long ago had rugby as a huge part of my life. And then around me, all my mates that had gone to these other universities were having a great time. I thought, how's this happened? What have I done wrong here? And then because I was ashamed of having no mates or not settling in, or maybe I'm the one that's making it this way, maybe actually I've kind of approached this in the wrong way and you can't really start again. Didn't do anything, didn't say anything, didn't try to broaden my horizons too much or anything like that. And it just got steadily worse and worse and worse. And then I ended up actually meeting a guy at the gym who I'm still friends with now, who was at a different college. And I put in a bid to move colleges, which I did the following, for the final term, but it didn't make a difference because it was in exams. Right. And by the time I'd met this group of people, it was coming to the end of, the part of first year at university where you sign on to live with people in second year. And that happens way too fast. So they'd all already signed and I was left kind of on my own with the decision, do I stay on my own and live in private halls, or do I want to go and live in Newcastle, 15 minutes on the train down the road with friends from Edinburgh? Chose the latter. And that was kind of fine as a way of disguising the fact that I wasn't happy for a while, because I was around people. Yeah. I was a bit happier. We were going on nights out. I was living like a semi-normal university life, just not at my university, which still ate me up a little bit because I felt like a bit of an outsider. Here's Fergus, the guy that doesn't actually go here, but he kind of is here, sort of thing. And that got steadily worse. And then exam season rolled around, and the only thing that was keeping me going during the week was my training. I was thinking, I can't remember what competition I was prepping for. I think I was prepping for competing in Vegas, actually. It was, 2015. I was prepping to go and compete in Las Vegas, and that kept me going. And then exam season rolled around. my mates were on completely different time schedules. Some of them would be in the nocturnal type, where they were revising at the library from 9 p.m. till 6 a.m. and vice versa. So I was quite alone again, no social interaction, no reason to go to and from university as there was no classes on. It was just exam stuff. And how long that went on for like that, I can't really remember, but I remember a week had passed where I hadn't said a word out loud to another human being other than a cashier or a barista or something from a full Sunday to Sunday. And at that point, I just felt like such a failure to myself, to just started pacing around the room, feeling really quite worn out, like what has happened here? How can you get out of this? Felt completely trapped in the situation I was in. And then from that point onwards, it's kind of a bit blurry on timelines, but what I did recently is I went back in my WhatsApp messages to try and determine what date I attempted suicide, what time, what the sort of communication was around it. And at about 5 p.m, my mum sent a message to our family WhatsApp group saying, this was early May 2016. She sent a message with a snippet from an article about a girl that had tragically died because there was a takeaway that had accidentally put peanuts in her takeaway, even though she'd said she was allergic to peanuts. And I'm allergic to peanuts, so my mum literally sent through, I am concerned, here is a cause for concern, please be careful, i.e. I care about you, I would like to help you. I said, and then she said, how's life with the boys? I said, I'm fine, I'll bear that in mind about the article. How's life with everyone else? 2 hours later, I swallowed as many pills as I could get my hand on, chinned an unknown at this stage amount of booze, and just hoped to just not return. And as I said on the Roman Kemp documentary, is that I didn't consciously think I would like to die. I thought, I just want some peace. I just want my own mind to shut up. I just want to take some time out from this way that I'm feeling. And I didn't acknowledge, I didn't confront in my head what that meant. Even though I knew what the outcome was, it wasn't, you are making the decision to die. And then I don't know how long it was later, but I basically woke up completely numb, completely just minced in a puddle of my own vomit, having survived. And as I said, I was just there, just spaced out for a long time. And then I started to feel angry, not because I'd attempted suicide, but because I hadn't managed.
Feel that.
And then a couple days later, I got a text from another good friend of mine saying, I'm getting a puppy from this litter next weekend, you in? Fully taking the piss, like not expecting me to respond in any way. I think he was just bragging about the fact he was getting a dog. And I was like, yeah, completely in, because in the back of my head, I thought that's exactly what you need. I didn't know why, but I just thought it's a heartbeat. And I needed I needed another heartbeat. And we didn't own a dog growing up. I had no experience owning a dog. I just thought I need something to care about. Got Odie, following weekend, brought him down on the train with only YouTube tutorials, online forums, as an understanding of how the fuck to look after a dog. And just like night one, he was throwing up in his crate. And I was like, oh God, have I got a broken one? Hope I've kept the receipt. Just like panicking, like everything's going wrong. But then very quickly, all of a sudden I had a sense of routine. I had a sense of purpose. I had a responsibility to my own life because I was responsible for another. And most importantly, I was in Newcastle where people are chatty. I was walking along with this 14-week-old French bulldog puppy, and people were just chatting to me, and I was just saying things out loud to people for the first. And it wasn't even like, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" I was just chatting about this dog.
Human interaction.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
And then Jesmond Dean is this lovely little green area, this little park. I don't know what specific to call it. It's like Waterleith almost, not far from where I was, and Odie wouldn't walk on concrete, so I had to carry him to the grass, little bastard, to start with. So like 500 meters of walking, carrying him like this, and I'd drop him on the grass and we'd go on a walk. I was just walking around Jesmond Dean and kind of blacked out for about an hour, where I had him off the lead because he was too scared to be far away from me. So he was no concern about going off or anything. And I was just kind of saying things out loud that I'd never even comprehended in my own head before. And the second they came out of my mouth, I kind of thought, fuck, okay. That kind of seems like a bit of a weight lifted, because I've acknowledged a bit of the reality of what I'm going through, and that kind of kept happening, and just saying things like, we're going to be all right, aren't we, pig, to Odie. And then slowly but surely we came around to Christmas the following year. My mum didn't want a dog in the house had kind of always said we weren't going to get one, I kind of had to explain why I'd kind of gone behind their back and got this dog. And then I just explained. I just said, look, this is why. And it was human interaction that pulled me out from that point of view that I was in when I was most struggling. And I say again, the most important thing about that is it wasn't, look, I've just attempted suicide, I need to talk about it. It was, oh, what's his name? Oh, his name's Odie. Oh, what is he? He's a French bulldog. Is he a pug? He's not a pug. That happens a lot. He's a French bulldog. And then they'd be like, oh, he's gorgeous. And I'd just chat, and then they'd be like, oh, we work in this hairdresser's here, bring him in whenever you want. And just, I was just speaking to people, and it was just an amazing thing. And then speaking to people meant that I had this bit of elation, which I just carried with me. So I'd just chat some shit to a Tesco checkout person. And then before I knew it, I had a bit of a stride back. And then it was the following summer, I was back in Edinburgh. I was working in a cocktail bar in the city centre, and I had people around me, I had friends around me, but I had myself around me again. And I had this dog, I had this structure, I'd work, I'd train, and I was living with the guy that had the other dog. So he could look after the dog when I was at work, vice versa, etc. And everything seemed like it slotted back into place, but I was just enjoying being happy again. And went through that process, as I said, until I got hit with that white noise at that laptop in London about 18 months later. But reflecting on that now, I can't rationalize any of the way that I was feeling, any of the decisions that I made. The fact that my mum texted me showing obvious concern, and I just thought,
you wouldn't even have seen it.
That's it, isn't it? Yeah, that's it.
Seen what was behind that text. You're so clouded. I mean, I have a lot of similarities to you there. I also got a dog after mine. Yeah. Kai, my baby, man, it gave me a purpose.
Yeah.
People talk to you. I remember I had to put him in a cage at the start so he wouldn't rip up the couch and stuff. And literally, I wasn't alone anymore with my PTSD. I had him. So anytime I cried, he would come up to me and lift my chin up.
Yeah.
Lift my chin up. And I tell you what, it makes me pure, just so grateful for the boy.
That's it, isn't it?
Lift my chin up and just comfort me. I get a bit upset about that now because my friend, actually, my good friend in the family, looks after him now because I can't walk him because of my knee. And he's big, he's about 70 kilo or something like that.
What is he? He's a
Alsatian Rottweiler.
Okay.
And I feel like I've lost him because he's got such a better life there because I can't walk him the way I should and go big walks with him now, especially with the problems that happen. But anyway, Kai was my purpose. I used to lay next to him and put my fingers in his crate so he could lick them. And I don't know if your friends have done this when they're a puppy and they're sleeping and they want attention at night. They go, "Aah!" and make these horrible fucking noises, man. Frenchies are the worst for it. But Kai used to go, "Aah! Ow! Ow! Ow!" constantly all night, man. It was brutal. But it was the best thing for me at the time. I loved it.
Yeah, that's it. That's
absolutely,
like,
my mum, it was driving my mum mental.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I'm like that. Oh, sleeping there, just listening to it, putting it to me.
You don't give a shit though. Like, it doesn't matter. Like Odie, I tried to crate train Odie, sacked that off pretty sharpish because he decided that everything out with his crate was completely off limits to go to the bathroom in. Yeah. But his crate, his bed, what was meant to be his home, that's where he was going to shit, and that's where he was going to roll around in it and make a mess. And like 9 times out of 10. Every night I'd come in to him, just little yelp, kind of like, ugh.
They're waiting on you as well, though. They're beautiful. Dogs are beautiful.
And I was there staring down the barrel of an hour and a half cleaning job.
I genuinely,
and you're like,
it's the best cleaning job of your life.
Genuinely, having a dog has helped me through lockdown. Yeah. Seriously, like the walks that it allows us to go a walk, and I can tell my girlfriend how I feel. Like, I'm not saying I can't do it in the house, but see, just going out and just that chit chat, like it's, and the dog's obviously there as well. It's beautiful. It's like, it was so refreshing, obviously hearing that as well. Obviously, the dog. I just think from your story, that one text though that you got, that one text has saved your life. I think. Yeah,
exactly. And
that's mind blowing.
I look at Odie now, and I'm like, but I mean, my Odie is somebody else's friend from high school, or the tattoo artist they normally see once a month that actually doesn't get the booking, or all these things. That's why it's important to have this conversation not only when it matters, not only when it's relevant, but all the time.
Yeah.
But I don't view those that have suffered with poor mental health as the only people responsible to share this conversation, because
Absolutely.
If you're not suffering from poor mental health and you've got stable mental health, then you can be an anchor for somebody that is.
Yeah.
And the more that you do that, the more productive, stable people we have in society, which means the more people we have to prop up others, which means that we can chip away at the...
We also can prepare the people who are in good health for it coming, because I was similar to you when I've read about your previous thoughts and feelings. My mum suffered with mental health.
Yeah.
She watches this. Best mum ever. Love you. Before I say anything about your mum, I love you. And she had really bad anxiety and stuff like that. She had agoraphobia at a point and stuff like that. But she'd been through a hell of a lot. And I used to look at my mum sometimes and go, why are you faking it? Why do you just always want to be sad? And sometimes I would say it out loud to her, and I feel still eats me up the day. Mum, you just want to be sad all the time. Just be happy. Not knowing it wasn't under control.
But that's
I was so ignorant.
You don't understand until you've experienced it. Like I haven't said this here yet, but I've said this plenty of times in the past, that as a young bloke, rugby playing bloke, powerlifting bloke, like to be sort of reliable within my friendship group, I thought depression was a convenient excuse people could use if they were not willing to step up and take responsibility or work hard.
Totally agree.
And then all of a sudden I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep for days at a time. I was pacing the room, just about pulling my hair out, with like somebody was about to come through the door and kill me, like that sort of pacing, like what am I going to do? What am I going to do? But the only threat was my own head. Then it became overwhelmingly real. I've been there.
I think that's why people probably find it hard to understand if they've not went through it. So all us three, we've all went through something difficult in our life. So for someone who maybe hasn't had it easy, or maybe just been okay their whole life and they've never come across challenges, they maybe find it hard to accept or hard to understand. So it's hard to try and get them on our side.
I mean, my girlfriend's mindset is rock solid. I mean, she's just phenomenal. She's so positive all the time. Even if she has a bad day, it's just because she's tired or something like that. She's so she really, and it really got in the way of our relationship, but it was a really tough part of our relationship for a long time there, that she didn't understand mine. And it's not that I wanted her to understand, because I know she couldn't. I wanted her to empathise and have the compassion.
That's all you need to do.
And that's all it says. But she didn't understand how to do that at the time. And I'm not blaming her. It's not. It's not a natural thing to do.
It's not taught.
But I was wanting her to just be there in a sense. She didn't even need to say anything. Just maybe if I was I was having a bad time, just right, Kenny, go out and walk for a wee bit, or listen, I'm going to go a walk a bit, you want to come, or even leave me for an hour, and no, not to argue with me at that time, because I'm not in that state. And all these things, like things that I would do, like I would say, right, I'm going to leave her, she's tired, things that I would do, but she didn't know. Now she's great, but it was getting her stressed out, because she didn't know what I was going through. She couldn't understand it. My anxiety was so bad that I was getting physical symptoms. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Serious tremors and all that kind of stuff, ridiculous sweats and loads of different stuff. And she was like, can that happen? So maybe I just think we maybe need to people need to be educated, but I think they need to want. See, if you know anyone struggling with mental health, I think you need to want to have to spend an hour a night for a week educating yourself, because we don't have it in schools. We should, but we need to want that. We need to think, right, how much do I care about my best pal? Because I'm not showing it, because I've not even went and looked at any of. So make it your best pal with BPD, right? Or PTSD. If my best friend has PTSD, you can bet your money on it, I'm revising on that. I'm going to see what their symptoms are, see what can make them better, see what can make their life easier, see what can make our friendship stronger and better. But we don't have that mindset. We just don't seem to have it. No. And I get mails like this every day. I'm alone. My friends don't understand. They don't want to understand. They don't want to listen. And I think we need to want to. We need to get that as society. We need that compassion. We need to.
That's what we lack.
Want
compassion.
To do it.
Empathy and compassion is not there. It's just not there.
And that's why I do what I do, to try and give us that hope and compassion, and maybe try and teach us, or maybe motivate people to want to empathise.
I don't think it's actually something you can necessarily teach, but it's something you can help people
support them
figure out for themselves, almost. I mean, I know it's kind of the same, but you know what I mean?
Do you not think if you help them figure it out, it can be too late?
I mean, from a preemptive point of view, so like in schools and stuff.
Yes,
So
yes,
like you can't sit kids down and say this is how you deal with anxiety, this is how you deal with depression, etc. But what you can do is help them.
Can you teach them a way to be compassionate?
That's the question. Is that I think as humanity, I think the fact nuclear bombs exist is probably a pretty firm no in that column. But where this is, I mean, this is a dangerous rabbit hole. But I'm going to open this can of worms a little bit. Yeah. Where this has become really abundantly clear recently is with Black Lives Matter conversation and with the conversation around Sarah Everard.
Yeah.
Where there are people that are trying to process and understand the perspective of other people before they can actually just show empathy and compassion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's easy to feel like men recently are under attack, or white people are under attack, or in this case, if you don't suffer with your mental health, that you're under attack and that you're not getting the attention that maybe you're due. But it all starts with the compassion and the empathy to maybe understand that you never will understand. So these are the things that you can do to be there for the people that need it. And in turn, you'll be better prepared to deal with that yourself if you are ever in a situation that's similar. And I think that's as much as I want to say on that, other than that it's the similarities in the way that certain responses or certain trains of thought on how to react to these things going on, which are all equally important in the grand scheme of things. As a society, we want to understand things first before we sort of pass an opinion on them, when in reality, we can't understand everything.
No.
And
just opinions straight away.
Yeah, exactly.
Our first point of contact from anything that we don't identify with or anything like that is just opinion.
Yeah.
You actually get people going, talking about, you put it perfectly, and it is a slippery can of worms. It's a slippery slope, that one. And we're actually doing a podcast on. Yeah,
I saw you were going to open up on that.
Say the Everard thing, and we're going to get people in to talk about it. And I think we do. It's as if we want to be. It's as if we want to be. We want to be offended these days, isn't it? It's as if we want it. We go on Facebook. We scroll. And we go on like a football thing, and we'll scroll it for something we don't like, then we'll put our wee, that's our wee moan, and then we'll feel better about ourselves. Our opinion's not even relevant. But anyway, for what you're talking about with that, we need to stop that. We need to stop replying to anything we may not agree with abuse.
Yeah.
Or
especially when the content matter is about other people's
life.
Other people's not persecution in every sense, but in people are feeling marginalized in one sense or another, whether that's any of the three examples that we've used there. I don't want to trivialize each of them individually by bunging them all together, but the human response in some situations is the same, and I think that's what needs to be considered. So it's compassion first, empathy first, opinions can come later. And that's I don't have a solution for that, but it's
the problem you've got as well is the opinion affects people more than the compassion and the empathy. The opinion's massive because it's normally a negative opinion.
But if we were talking about identity there, and like people are like we're engulfed by this identity theme that like you identify as a Celtic fan, or you identify as a marathon runner, or you identify as a Rangers fan, or you identify as a politician or something like that, and we get offended by things that aren't actually personally put to us. Do you know what I mean? So these things are not personally at all. We'll take these things written on social media in anyone's post as a personal attack, and we'll have to bombard it with abuse. So I just wanted to add that point in before we change. I want to speak about, before we finish, this hybrid athlete. Like, I'm still not certain what the fuck it is. You know what I mean? And I've been trying, is there leaks for it? Is there like a Strava table for it? Is it something you can see becoming big? Is it a personal, a kind of professional kind of? Because you're like almost professional. Like, if there was a professional hybrid athlete, you would be it. So is it like a personal, individual kind of self-maintaining sport kind of?
Well,
how does it work?
I think the distinction to make is that it's not CrossFit, because CrossFit is a sport in its own sense, whereas hybrid athletics, being a hybrid athlete or training as one, means that you compete in a multitude of different sports whilst training simultaneously. For me, it's predominantly powerlifting, running, triathlon, swimming, and then sort of other things that get chucked in and in between. So I've done a lot of ultra running, but I can also squat and deadlift over 500 pounds. So it's not really, there isn't a league, there isn't a competition for it. There could be at some point, but I enjoy the competition with myself, which is why I've found it to be what I enjoy, because it means that I can turn up to an Ironman race and know that as long as I'm injury free, if I book an Ironman race in, I'm only ever 3 months away from being able to specialize for that. If I want to do a powerlifting competition, I just need to refocus my training a little bit and focus to do that. But what it means I can do is I can train different things at once. You need to be very careful with how you manage your training, because you can easily tank yourself because you've got so much going in.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't just enjoy doing one sport, so why should I only do one sport? It's kind of the way I look at it. Mm-hmm. And I mean, there's been elements of it that have been kind of recognized. I mean, the 500 pound squat and the sub 5 minute mile was something that was spoken about in CrossFit. Like,
you done 510 pound squat, 5 minute mile and a half marathon?
Marathon.
Oh, full marathon.
Yeah.
In the same day. You done it in the same day.
That's insane.
That's brilliant.
That's insanity.
It sure felt like it at the time.
Imagine how you're like, because he builds up to the 510 squat. It's not just a tiny warm up and a fight. He done like 120, 130, 140, 50, 60, 70, I think, and then you smash it. You know how you feel after a big leg day, right? And I've squatted a lot. I've squatted 510 as well. And you feel not able to run a marathon. So
it was the mile that finished me. I mean, it was just awful. I mean, for anyone that runs, you'll know a sub 5 mile is sort of like where you become
standard,
Olympics. Like, I mean, I think Olympic qualifications like sub 410 now. I'm not sure, but that's for people.
What was Paula Radcliffe's famous time again? Was that not 440?
I don't know if she's done miles actually. Wasn't she a marathoner?
Yeah, she was a marathoner, but did she not do did she not do the record the fastest mile one time? I'll need to Google it.
Maybe she might. She's a fast mile in one of the marathons. Yeah.
And it was ridiculously fast, and everyone was talking about it. So that must be
brought
out.
I think
be beasting. I just remembered it. Someone reading about it. She's done the fastest mile in the world. In one of her,
I think it was in a marathon.
It was in competition.
It's been broken now.
It's been broken.
A focus mile on a track is very different to do it. Mile 17 in a marathon. I can't imagine anything worse. But but I mean, the whole reason it was like created as a concept, like I think it was CrossFit level 1. It was coined as like the ideal CrossFit athlete would be able to do this. No one's been able to do it since. And then me and this American were in like a race to do it first. He did it the weekend before me just because he kind of came out of nowhere and did it. So I decided to do a marathon by the end as well. Not from like an ego thing, but I thought this thing's been such a long time coming. Two of us doing it in the same space of time. Surely we should add another element to it, because if this was once considered not possible, I don't think it was ever as hard as people have made it out to be in terms of the approach, because it just depends on how you went about it. But I thought surely we should add another element to broaden this spectrum a little bit more, because anybody that's tried to run alongside weightlifting or vice versa, you'll know that it's difficult to manage the two, but you've got to manage programming very carefully. You've got to be able to sort of transition into different things quickly. But all I've got now is a high aerobic base, a high strength base, and then I can confidently switch to other things quite quickly. I mean, I've got the Keltman coming up on June the 12th, which is like an Ironman, and then some up in Torridon at the bottom of the North Coast 500 on June the 12th. I've got another full distance triathlon in July, and then I've got some big ultra projects sort of early 2022 planned in, but that'll all be whilst squatting and deadlifting over 200 kilos, give or take. Mm-hmm. So it's just what I enjoy. The reason I do it is what I enjoy. I mean, I often get asked, like, will you ever compete in CrossFit? Will you ever do the Open? I'm like, no, I don't do it because I'm not interested in a lot of the elements of it. And I don't do this to come X place or Y place. I do it because I enjoy training lots of different things. And I like running in hills. I like riding bikes, but I also like being strong. Why would I not do those things all at once? Yeah. But it's hard to balance. And that's why me and Johnny are quite like unique in that style of coaching, because what people often do is they take 100% of a running program and 100% of a strength program and go like this. But you can't operate. You can't operate at 200% capacity. And then what'll happen is it'll be 3 weeks in and think, oh, I'm fucked. I haven't made any progress. This can't be done. Rather than, well, if we took 60% of this, 40% of this, applied it to you, saw what you respond well to, saw what you don't respond well to, adjust as we go. All of a sudden, you're running a marathon. You're jacked. Front double bicep at the finish line. Everyone's thinking, how the fuck's he done that? That's what I enjoy about it, because it's changing perceptions around what categories can achieve.
Yeah.
Like there's a guy I know down south who's ex-strongman who's deadlifted over 400 kilos, who's now I think he's committed to running 48 marathons in 48 days in the 48 counties of England. They're not going to be fast marathons, but the ability to endure having also 40 kilos body weight ago, deadlifted 400 kilos, just shows that the identity politics that goes with this sort of thing, I like it because I kind of sit outside all of it, where I just enjoy being me, whereas I'm in a trail running group on Facebook where they genuinely think that people that run on the roads are dickheads. And I'm like, what the fuck? You're just running on different terrains. Get out your own. Shut up. What are you talking about?
You're busting a lot of myths as well.
But I say,
myths of what couldn't be done. You're smashing them. And obviously the old love, hate, strength and endurance and stuff like that. You are the two things that don't really go together. You know? And you're almost opening I think you're opening the doors for some other sports to take note, to make better athletes.
There could be a modified version of a decathlon putting loads of things together, I guess. But this is the problem. Like whenever I speak to my brother, who's an absolute mutant of an athlete, to be fair, could potentially make me look like a bit of a dick in a few years' time. But he's a cricketer by trade. Like he's 20 years old. He'll be 21 in August. He can deadlift 500 pounds. He can squat 200 kilos. He ran 100 kilometers the other weekend with me. He's run a 4:53 mile. He can complete the yo-yo test. He's just an absolute mutant. But like in cricket, he turns up to his S&C sessions and they're doing single leg side lateral hops. And you're like, well, actually, beyond a certain point, there's injury prevention and then there's actual performance force output development, which is where a lot of sports don't have much of a bigger picture vision. Like,
we're very old school in one way.
I mean,
we're not willing to try new. That's the problem. We're not willing to, as you say, at the start of trial and error. We're not willing to do
What's
that.
your miles sitting at?
What's that?
What's your current miles? You've been doing a bit of running, haven't you?
I've been doing a lot, but not as mine's is like 5Ks and things like that.
Yeah. What's your 1 mile, bro? You know it. I know you know it.
I'm not saying anything. I'm not embarrassing myself, especially next to this athlete.
My 1 mile is I do it in the bath. I do it in the bath, flicking my feet. I
say let the runners run and let the players play.
Yeah. I'm not running a while, man. It's because of my surgery as well, and I'm going to go pro bodybuilding now with actual Nathan Dasher probably coaching me, so I'm not going to be doing any sub 5 minute miles. But I'm doing a challenge for charity similar to you. I'm going to try and raise £100,000, so I would love to, if you would take part in one of them with me.
Yeah.
Could be a Ben Nevis climb. I'm not going at your pace, so you can put me on your fucking back if you want.
I am not fucking going back to Ben Nevis, but I'll do pretty much anything else.
We've loads of stuff we're thinking about now, and I'm doing it for Brothers in Arms charity I work close with. They're a fantastic men's mental health charity. They have an app out which, within 30 minutes, I think, you can speak to qualified mental health counsellors and psychiatrists. But listen, I know you need to rush away, and we've been here just chatting all sorts of nonsense, and it has been great. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I know a lot of you won't know Fergus yet, especially Glaswegians, and might not have came across him yet, but he is a phenomenal athlete and someone down to earth and someone humble. And I think when you watch him and watch his YouTube channel and what he does, you'll really take to him, and he'll be someone who can help you and inspire you and motivate you to be better every day, and to service yourself more and to get a better understanding of mental health. He articulates and he talks about things so well, and lets you he lets you almost ride his story and his roller coaster with him, which I think is pretty cool and pretty unique. So follow him. I'm going to put his all his socials and his 2 new businesses. What are they?
Omnia Performance and The Modern Mind.
Tell me, just 10 seconds, describe what they both are.
Omnia Performance is me and Jonathan Payne focusing on hybrid coaching so that people can balance strength and endurance, whether they are powerlifters wanting to run the first marathon or 5K speed demons that want to squat 200 kilos. That's sort of where we fit in. The Modern Mind there's 3 phases to it. Phase 1 is where I start the podcast and do a lot more work in schools, corporates, and universities myself, sharing my story and that insight. Phase 2 is I've got about 50 to 60 people lying dormant, ready to be just everyday human beings. Not just similar to yourself, where you've come from. You're not PhD in mental health or anything. I think that work is done. I think it's time for humans to be in front of these people. So we've got a big roster of talent. I guess it's basically a talent agency dressed up with bells and whistles so that those people can be booked and placed around the UK. And then phase 3 is in-person events and seminars and workshops and things in the future. But yeah, first podcast is recorded and that's going out on Monday, the 29th.
And that is with
Roman Kemp. So that'll be a good exploration of...
You've probably seen Fergus on BBC.
Yeah.
On Roman Kemp's mental health show.
Our Silent Emergency.
Aye, Silent Emergency.
Yeah. So we just...
aptly named.
Yeah.
So is that what's next for Fergus?
Yes, that's what's next really. And then I've got some athletic stuff coming up. And then everything else is to be...
Then being nervous with me.
We'll see.
I'll be water boy.
I've done Ben Nevitt over 30 times at this point, so I think it might be one for.
I've done it once, man.
When I've got my grandkids and I'm telling them, "Did I ever tell you about that thing I did?" They'll be like, "Fuck off."
Listen, that'll become. I think the way we're going and how lazy we're getting as a nation, that'll go down. And these kind of feats of strength and endurance will go down in this. Man, we're becoming so lazy. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure having you, mate. I really appreciate it. Dylan, you've been fantastic. Give Dylan a follow too. My new co-host will be on every couple of episodes when he can make it. Just to make things more interesting, give more value to the conversation. I think he's fantastic. Fergus, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for joining us, Fergus.
Thank you. Cheers.
To that point.